Imagine standing beside the largest freshwater reservoir on Earth. Not a lake, not a river, not even an ocean. It's the sky above your head. At any given moment, Earth's atmosphere contains roughly 3.7 quadrillion gallons of water vapor, more fresh water than all the rivers on the planet combined. Invisible, weightless, and constantly moving around us, it's an ocean floating overhead. And yet, for millions of people, safe drinking water remains one of the hardest resources to access. In 2014, residents of Flint, Michigan were told their tap water was safe. It wasn't. Corrosion in aging pipes allowed lead to contaminate the city's water supply, exposing thousands of families to a public health crisis and revealing a troubling reality. Even in a developed nation, the systems we depend on can fail. That's what makes one invention so fascinating. Standing nearly 30 feet tall and built primarily from bamboo, the Warka Water Tower does something that sounds impossible. It pulls water directly from the air. No power lines, no pumps, no fuel, no electricity. Using a specially designed mesh suspended inside a bamboo framework, the tower captures moisture from fog, dew, and humid air. As droplets form, they collect and flow into a container below, producing drinkable water from what appears to be thin air. Some versions have been reported to harvest up to 100 liters per day under favorable conditions. The entire structure can be built from inexpensive local materials, with early estimates placing the cost at only a few $100s. On paper, it sounds like the perfect solution. A device that creates water where there are no pipes. A technology that runs without electricity. A system affordable enough for some of the world's poorest communities. So here's the question. If water is literally floating above us, and if a bamboo tower can harvest it for a fraction of the cost of traditional infrastructure, why aren't these towers everywhere? Why aren't cities investing in them? Why don't we see them across drought-stricken regions around the world? And what does the answer reveal about the way modern society thinks about water itself? The idea of pulling water from the air may sound futuristic. In reality, it's one of the oldest water technologies humanity has ever developed. Long before electric pumps, desalination plants, and sprawling pipeline networks, civilizations living in some of the world's driest regions discovered a simple truth. The atmosphere itself could be a source of fresh water. In the ancient Levant, communities built massive stone walls and terraces that cooled rapidly after sunset. As warm, moisture-rich air passed over these surfaces, tiny droplets condensed and collected along the stone. Over time, engineers refined these structures to maximize water capture, creating passive systems that worked day and night without fuel or moving parts. The Egyptians developed similar techniques. Archaeological evidence suggests that carefully arranged stone piles and rock structures were used to encourage condensation during cool nighttime temperatures. The stones acted like natural heat exchangers, creating surfaces where atmospheric moisture could transform into liquid water. Every morning, droplets could be collected and directed towards storage areas or crops. These weren't primitive accidents. They were deliberate engineering solutions designed around a deep understanding of local climate, airflow, and temperature differences. But perhaps the most intriguing example emerged much later. In the early 1900s, a German-Russian engineer named Friedrich Siebold became fascinated by ancient stone formations in Crimea. He believed these mysterious structures had once functioned as giant atmospheric water collectors. To test the idea, Siebold constructed a massive cone-shaped pile of limestone near the city of Feodosia. The structure contained thousands of tons of stone arranged to maximize cooling and airflow. The results were remarkable. Reports from the period claimed the installation produced as much as 360 liters of water per day, using nothing more than natural temperature differences between the stones and the surrounding air. No electricity, no machinery, no external energy source, just physics. Warm air carried moisture. Cool stone surfaces caused condensation. Gravity did the rest. For a brief moment, it appeared that humanity might have rediscovered a forgotten pathway to water security. But history had other plans. As the Industrial Revolution accelerated, engineers became obsessed with scale. Steam engines, pumps, reservoirs, and centralized distribution networks promised something passive systems could never easily provide: enormous volumes of water delivered on demand to rapidly growing cities. Governments and investors poured money into dams, treatment facilities, pumping stations, and thousands of miles of pipe. Water became an industrial product transported across entire regions rather than something harvested locally. The new approach worked. Cities expanded, industries flourished, modern sanitation transformed public health. But there was a hidden cost. As centralized infrastructure became the dominant model, many older atmospheric harvesting techniques were gradually forgotten. Knowledge that had evolved over centuries was dismissed as outdated, inefficient, or irrelevant in a world increasingly powered by fossil fuels and large-scale engineering. The question was no longer how to collect water where people lived. The question became how to move water from somewhere else. And for more than a century, that assumption shaped nearly every water system on Earth. Yet today, as droughts intensify, infrastructure ages, and billions of dollars are spent moving water across vast distances, some engineers are beginning to wonder whether those forgotten masters understood something we've overlooked. What if the atmosphere was never the backup plan? What if it was the original reservoir all along? If ancient civilizations provided the inspiration, nature provided the blueprint. Because long before humans learned how to harvest water from the atmosphere, one small creature had already mastered the technique. Deep within Namibia's coastal desert lives the Namib desert beetle, a remarkable insect that survives in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Rain is rare, surface water is almost non-existent. Temperatures can swing dramatically between day and night. And yet the beetle thrives. Its secret arrives each morning in the form of fog rolling inland from the Atlantic Ocean. As moisture-laden air drifts across the desert, the beetle climbs to the crest of a sand dune and performs a strange ritual. It tilts its body toward the wind, raises its back, and simply waits. What happens next has fascinated biologists for decades. The beetle's shell is covered with a sophisticated pattern of microscopic bumps and channels. Some areas attract water while others repel it. Scientists refer to these properties as hydrophilic and hydrophobic surfaces. When fog droplets strike the beetle's back, they cling to the hydrophilic bumps and begin merging into larger drops. Once the droplets become heavy enough, gravity takes over. The surrounding hydrophobic channels guide the water directly toward the beetle's mouth. No energy, no movement, no waste. Just an elegant system designed by millions of years of evolution. Researchers have estimated that, under favorable fog conditions, the beetle can collect water equal to a significant percentage of its body weight each day. An extraordinary survival advantage in an environment where liquid water is almost impossible to find. To engineers searching for sustainable solutions, the message was clear. Nature had already solved the problem. The challenge was learning how to copy it. This approach is known as biomimicry, the practice of studying natural systems and adapting their designs to human technology. And few projects embraced that philosophy more completely than the Worka Water Tower. When Italian architect Arturo Vittori began exploring solutions for communities facing water scarcity, he became fascinated by organisms that harvested moisture directly from the atmosphere. Among them, the Namib desert beetle stood out. Rather than attempting to force water from the air using energy-intensive machinery, Vittori focused on reproducing the beetle's passive collection strategy. At the heart of the Worka Water Tower is a specially designed mesh made from lightweight polyester fibers. Stretching through the center of the structure, the mesh provides approximately 80 square meters of surface area where water droplets can form and accumulate. Like the beetle's shell, the mesh is designed to maximize contact between airborne moisture and collection surfaces. As humid air, fog, or dew passes through the tower, tiny droplets gather on the fibers. The droplets merge, grow larger, and eventually drip downward into a collection basin below. The process requires no electricity because the atmosphere provides the raw material and gravity provides the transportation system. But the mesh is only part of the story. The tower itself stands roughly 10 meters tall and is carefully engineered to manipulate airflow. Its shape resembles a giant woven cocoon built from bamboo and other locally available materials. At first glance, the design appears almost artistic. In reality, every curve serves a purpose. Vittori drew inspiration from another master engineer found in nature, the termite. Certain termite species construct towering mounds that maintain surprisingly stable internal temperatures, despite extreme conditions outside. Their secret lies in a complex network of channels that continuously regulate airflow through passive ventilation. The Worka Water Tower applies a similar principle. Its outer structure encourages air to move naturally through the system, increasing the amount of moisture that contacts the mesh, while simultaneously helping regulate temperature differences that promote condensation. No fans, no motors, no computerized controls, just geometry. The result is a machine that behaves less like conventional infrastructure and more like a living organism, breathing, cooling, and collecting water through the same physical principles that have sustained life in nature for millions of years. And that's what makes the design so revolutionary. Most modern technology attempts to overpower nature. The Worka Water Tower succeeds by cooperating with it. But if the science is sound, the materials are inexpensive, and nature has already proven the concept works, an even bigger question begins to emerge. Can these elegant structures truly compete with the massive water systems that dominate the modern world? If the Worka Water Tower is so simple, so affordable, and so effective, why don't we see them standing beside homes, schools, and communities across the United States? The answer has less to do with engineering and more to do with bureaucracy. Contrary to many claims online, atmospheric water harvesting is not explicitly banned throughout the United States. There is no federal law that specifically prohibits a person from collecting moisture from the air. But in practice, that doesn't mean deploying these systems is easy. Modern construction is governed by an enormous web of building codes, zoning regulations, health standards, liability requirements, and inspection procedures. Nearly every structure built in America must fit into predefined categories that regulators understand and know how to evaluate. A house has a code, a well has a code, a septic system has a code, a municipal water connection has a code, but atmospheric water harvesting occupies a strange gray area. The International Residential Code and related building standards were largely written around traditional infrastructure models. They provide detailed guidance for pipes, plumbing systems, drainage networks, wells, and public water supplies. However, there are few established pathways specifically designed for unconventional systems that generate drinking water directly from atmospheric moisture. For local inspectors, that creates a problem. If there is no recognized template, no testing framework, and no established approval process, many officials become hesitant to authorize installation. The result is not necessarily an outright ban, but a system where innovation often moves slower than regulation. In other words, the technology may be legal. Getting permission to use it can be another story entirely. But regulations are only one piece of the puzzle. Money is the other. Water is not just a public resource, it's also a massive business. The bottled water industry alone generates tens of billions of dollars annually in revenue. Around the world, countless companies profit from water extraction, treatment, transportation, packaging, distribution, filtration equipment, utility services, and infrastructure construction. The modern water economy depends heavily on centralized systems. Water is collected in one location, processed in another, transported through vast networks, then sold or distributed to consumers. Atmospheric harvesting challenges that model. A Warka water tower doesn't require a pipeline. It doesn't require a pumping station. It doesn't require monthly utility delivery. And it doesn't require someone purchasing truckloads of bottled water. Instead of moving water to people, it attempts to produce water where people already are. For established industries built around centralized distribution, that concept represents a fundamentally different economic model. This does not mean there is a secret conspiracy preventing atmospheric harvesting from spreading. The reality is often more subtle. Large industries naturally invest in technologies that complement existing infrastructure and business models. Decentralized systems frequently struggle to attract the same level of funding, political support, and institutional momentum enjoyed by established solutions. Then there is the issue of ownership. For decades, several Western states treated naturally occurring water as a resource subject to strict legal control. The reasoning dates back to the American West's long history of drought and water scarcity. In regions where every drop mattered, governments developed complex water rights systems designed to allocate limited supplies among farmers, cities, industries, and landowners. That led to surprising restrictions. Colorado became famous for laws that historically limited rainwater collection by homeowners because rainfall was viewed as part of a larger watershed system already allocated to downstream users. Lawmakers feared that widespread collection could theoretically interfere with existing water rights. Utah implemented similar restrictions at various points, requiring permits or imposing limits on how much rainwater could be collected and stored. Although many of these laws have since been relaxed or modified, they reveal an important principle. In some jurisdictions, water falling from the sky was not automatically considered the property of the person who collected it. Instead, it was viewed as part of a shared resource governed by the state. That raises an intriguing legal question. If governments have debated who owns rain before it reaches the ground, what happens when technology captures water directly from the atmosphere itself? Who owns that water? The homeowner? The community? The state? Or no one at all? As atmospheric harvesting technology becomes more advanced, those questions may become increasingly important. Because the greatest obstacle facing innovations like the Warka water tower may not be whether they can produce water. It may be whether modern legal and economic systems are prepared for a future in which anyone can. Despite the regulatory challenges, economic interests, and decades of dependence on centralized infrastructure, atmospheric water harvesting has never disappeared. In fact, it is quietly proving itself around the world. Some of the most successful examples can be found in communities that face daily struggles accessing clean drinking water. In Ethiopia, Warka water installations have been introduced in rural regions where families often travel long distances to collect water. By harvesting moisture from the atmosphere and supplementing local water supplies, these towers have helped demonstrate how low-cost technology can reduce the burden on communities with limited infrastructure. Similar projects have appeared in Haiti, where access to clean water remains a persistent challenge in many areas. Schools and community facilities have explored atmospheric water collection as one tool among several solutions designed to improve local water security. In Morocco, where certain regions experience recurring drought conditions, fog harvesting systems inspired by the same principles have shown remarkable results. Large mesh installations capture moisture from coastal fog and convert it into usable freshwater for nearby villages, proving that the atmosphere can become a practical water source when the conditions are right. These projects are important because they reveal a powerful truth. Atmospheric harvesting is not science fiction. It is not a laboratory experiment. It is not a distant future technology waiting to be invented. It is already working, right now, in real communities, for real people. And perhaps the most fascinating part is how simple the core concept actually is. A basic atmospheric water harvesting system can be built using surprisingly accessible materials. The first component is a frame. Many designs use bamboo because it is lightweight, durable, inexpensive, and widely available. The frame creates height and surface area while allowing air to move freely through the structure. The second component is the collection mesh. Polyester mesh is commonly used because its fibers provide countless surfaces where microscopic droplets can form. As humid air passes through the material, moisture accumulates and gradually combines into larger drops. The third component is a collection basin. As water drips from the mesh, it flows downward into a clean container where it can be stored, filtered if necessary, and used. That's the basic principle. No electrical grid, no fuel supply, no pumps, no complex machinery, just air, temperature, condensation, and gravity working together. Of course, larger systems like the Warka water tower involve careful engineering to maximize airflow, structural stability, durability, and water production. But the underlying physics remains remarkably simple. And that simplicity may be the most revolutionary aspect of all. For generations, people have been taught that essential resources must come from distant systems. Electricity comes from the grid, food comes from supply chains, water comes from utilities. The individual becomes increasingly dependent on networks that exist far beyond their control. When those systems function properly, few people question them. But when they fail, the consequences can be immediate and severe. Atmospheric water harvesting offers a different perspective. It does not seek to replace every reservoir, pipeline, treatment facility, or municipal water network. Instead, it asks a deeper question. What if communities could provide at least some of their own necessities? What if resilience mattered as much as efficiency? What if independence was viewed as infrastructure? Because at its core, the story of the Warka Water Tower is not really about water. It is about self-reliance. It is about rediscovering knowledge that humanity once understood. It is about recognizing that solutions do not always have to be bigger, more expensive, or more complicated. Sometimes the most powerful technologies are the ones that work with nature instead of trying to dominate it. And perhaps that is the lesson hidden within the invisible ocean above our heads. Every day, trillions of gallons of fresh water drift silently through the atmosphere. Most people never notice it. Most governments never count on it. Most industries never profit from it. Yet it remains there, waiting. A resource that belongs to no pipeline. A resource that requires no monthly bill. A resource that reminds us that true freedom is not merely having access to necessities. True freedom is having the ability to provide them for yourself.